Closed captioning for Justice and Law Weekly is provided in part by the Clifford Law Offices in support of quality public television for the Chicago area.
Should we allow cameras in our courtrooms? Would a camera invade our privacy or turn the courtroom into a media circus? On the other hand, would it provide greater public access to the judiciary? Well, you might be surprised to learn that the Illinois Supreme Court recently decided to allow cameras in some Illinois courtrooms. Welcome to the Chicago Bar Association's Justice and Law Weekly. I'm Bob Clifford, President of the Chicago Bar Association. Here to help me discuss this important decision is Cook County Circuit Court Chief Judge Timothy Evans. The Cook County Circuit Court is the largest court system in Illinois and one of the largest unified court systems in the world. Chief Judge Evans supervises 411 judges who serve over 5 million residents in Cook County. Welcome, Chief Judge Evans. Thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
I think you're our most popular guest because people just like to hear what you have to say.
Well, it's kind of you to say that, and it's a pleasure to be with you always. And this is a very important subject for citizens throughout this community.
But this is the only time that they get to see you on TV, at least up until this pilot program.
Well, that's true. That's true. The members of the judiciary don't get a chance to get on television very much.
Right. There is a new program. Our Supreme Court has authorized a pilot program, we're calling it, in one part of our state. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The Supreme Court has decided that Illinois should give consideration to becoming one of the states that permit cameras to be in the courtroom. And they decided to give us an opportunity throughout the state to apply to be a part of a pilot system. And you're right, the first community selected by the Supreme Court under this pilot program is the 14th judicial community, which is adjacent to Iowa.
And there's a reason for that, though, why they picked that, am I right?
Yes, absolutely. That community is about 500 feet from the shores of Iowa. And Iowa is one of the states that embraced cameras in the courtroom early on. They've had cameras in their courtroom since 1979. And so the thought is, I think, by the Supreme Court members, is if they choose a pilot adjacent to a community that already has been doing this for quite some time, the members of the media are accustomed to the requirements and the restrictions that are imposed in Iowa, and they won't be uncomfortable with similar restrictions here in the state of Illinois.
Right, but Illinois, Judge, is one of the, it's in a minority of states, isn't it? I heard that it's only one of 14 or something?
You're absolutely right. 36 states have already done this. Illinois is one of 14 states that currently have not permitted it, and you'd be interested to know that most of the states surrounding Illinois already have it. Missouri, Iowa that we mentioned, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all of them have it. And why shouldn't we have it here in the state of Illinois? I know we can do it, and we can do it well right here.
And did, on behalf of the Circuit Court of Cook County, did you apply to the Supreme Court to do this?
Yes, I did. I applied the very first week because I believe the public needs to know what goes on in their courtrooms. We work for them. We help them resolve their disputes, and we want them to resolve those disputes in court rather than on the street. And they need to know that we are not the kind of system that they see in entertainment shows where, quote unquote, the Judge Judys of the world talk down to some of the residents or call them names or tell them to shut up or anything like that. You'd never find that in what happens in the courtrooms here in the state of Illinois.
Yeah. Access to the courts is really critical to our democracy, isn't it, don't you think?
Absolutely is. We know that the court is a part of the three branches of our government, and we know that people are not able to take time off from work to come down to watch a case from gavel to gavel. Although most of our courtrooms are open to the public, we know that it's just impractical for us to suggest that people can come down and watch all of the proceedings at the same time. So this would give people a chance to cut on their television and watch courts in action. Right. They'd be able to see that no one talks down to right. them. No one is going to embarrass them. That only thing we're interested in is the truth of whatever happened.
Right.
And the only thing that the court can consider is the facts of the given case and the law that is to be applied to those particular facts, and nothing else.
Right. If it comes to Cook County eventually, which I suspect it will, would you permit it in every case, or are there limitations to the cases that you'd allow court?
There are limitations. You're absolutely right. This pilot program has specifically excluded cases that might generate more heat than light. For example, there won't be any juvenile proceedings, there won't be any divorce proceedings, there won't be any cases involving sexual activity, for example, and most forcible felonies would be excluded from this pilot program.
Right. But I think, you know, from my perspective as a bar leader, one of the things I've always thought is that if we allow the public greater access to our courts and our judges, they'll understand why it is that we need to adequately fund the judiciary with our tax dollars, because otherwise we have no, it's just out there, and you know, there's a lack of instruction in civics nowadays that's impacting the judiciary. Is that your view of that, civics?
I think you're right. It would be better if the public school system and the school systems in general were to concentrate on what you characterize as civics. You're right, as we came along in school, it was quite common for us to learn about civics, and we knew what the Constitution provided with respect to the third branch of government, the judiciary, and we made the distinctions between the U.S. Constitution and the local state constitution. But I'm not sure that the members of the public are as familiar with that process right. today as they were during the time that we grew up.
Sure. Would it be permissible, in your view, to broadcast over the internet nowadays, if you think that's another option?
It certainly is a good option. At this particular point, the pilot program has not provided for that. The pilot program provides for a maximum of 2 cameras in each courtroom. That's going to be a part of the pilot program. And we could also have 2 still cameras in the courtroom as well. And there is going to be a requirement that the members of the media cooperate with respect to having access to the particular courtroom with the camera, so that there will be a media coordinator elected among the members of the media. And everybody will have to work through that media coordinator in order for this system to work, at least in the pilot stage. And so if one of the cameras were to provide information to the internet, that would be permitted. Right. But there would not be internet access unless the media coordinator coordinated that among the members of the media.
There's some serious privacy concerns here, though, aren't there?
Sure.
But I have to tell you, one of my thoughts was, if you look at that trial recently, Casey Anthony, yes. If we go back to the granddaddy of them all, the OJ trial.
Oh, yes.
And even right now, there's a trial going on in Georgia. It's a murder case. I think it's called the Dunwoody case. It just struck me that there are revenue opportunities there for the government. That, okay, we're going to broadcast the Dunwoody trial. We're going to do it in a way that addresses all your concerns, as you're describing it as the judge. But we're going to sell it to CBS, and the state could get money. Why don't we do that?
Well, it may ultimately come to that. I think we'd like to see the judiciary funded in a way that would keep the judiciary independent and not have it rely so much on some of the funding approaches that we currently have to have.
That is one of the problems. You know, you mentioned independence, and we know our three branches of government and independent judiciary. But you euphemistically, the judiciary still has to go through the process of getting funding through the legislatures. Is that right?
That's right. And there's not enough funding to go around.
Right.
The dollars are disappearing, and we need to have another means by which to relieve the taxpayers, but at the same time have quality judicial work being done. And so I'm sure you're right that sooner or later somebody will reach the point where they will see that this might be a way for the judiciary to generate additional funds without imposing that burden on the taxpayers.
Right, right. And in the cases that have you, in your own experience, had an opportunity, like I know you were with our Chicago City Council early in your career.
Yes.
Are the City Council proceedings on TV?
Yes, they are. The City Council proceedings are on television. People have access to that. They also have access to other governmental activity, the governor's work, the legislature's work in Springfield, and that should not be any exception for the judiciary. We need to be able to give the public access to what happens in their courts. And I would rush to say, under this particular pilot program, some of the concerns have been addressed in the pilot. For example, no juror will be shown on television. The selection of the jurors will not be shown on television. And certain witnesses who might otherwise be shown on television can be excluded from the television by the court. And anyone who has a proceeding that is under consideration can object if that person wishes to, in terms of whether or not that particular case should be televised. Now, the objection is not binding on the court, and the court has discretion as to whether to permit it or not. The chief judge, the position that I hold, could reject a given request to have cameras in any particular court. But also the particular trial judge who will hear the case can also decide not to permit the cameras in his or her courtroom on a given case.
Right.
And so we want people to know that there is great flexibility in this pilot that they're considering. And at the appropriate time, I certainly expect to have the input from lawyers, from other judges, from members of the media, and from the general public. We're going to have a committee that looks at the best way to do this. I don't anticipate that we would have the kind of coverage that the O.J. Simpson case had.
Right.
And you alluded to the Anthony case in Florida.
Right.
That went smoothly. The judge in that particular case
was pretty
praised.
good, wasn't he?
He absolutely was. He was magnificent.
He knew his stuff, and he controlled that courtroom.
He really did. No one's privacy was invaded. It was a very active case in that community, and people knew about it, but it was handled very, very well. And I believe that the judges in Cook County and in the state of Illinois could handle it equally well.
Yeah. When you put your proposal together, did you have a concern at all about any security issues, security in the courthouse?
Yes.
And how did you address that?
Yes, I realize that there may be some security concerns. For example, some people said that maybe a witness would not wish to have his or her image caught on camera. And the flexibility that this pilot program has given us is flexibility where we could exclude that particular witness's image from being considered. And I think some of the concerns that have been expressed can be addressed on a case-by-case basis, and that's the way this is being approached.
Yeah. I'm sure our viewers would like to know if they've stated, because maybe they haven't, but how long the pilot, if you will last, and how the Supreme Court is going to go about making a decision to allow other courts like the Circuit Court of Cook County to go forward. Have they told you anything about that?
Yes, they have. They consider the pilot to be experimental.
Right.
And so they wish to gain knowledge from the first experiment that they've already embraced, and that is the 14th Judicial Circuit that I alluded to. They've also indicated that probably they would select additional small community coverage before they would embrace a larger community like Cook County. And they said that they would wish to have us get the benefit from these smaller communities as we embrace what ultimately will take place in Cook County.
Yeah, but I don't know if people realize that in essence you have those small communities. You've got the outlying courthouses,
Absolutely,
Rolling Meadows, you know, Meadow, is it Meadow? What's it called?
We have
Meadowwood?
you're absolutely Bridgeview.
Okay.
We have the 2nd District, which is in Skokie. We have the 3rd District, which is Rolling Meadows that you alluded to. We have areas.
And those are all under
west.
you.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Yes, we have 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th District all under me. And so we could choose a smaller community. We could choose a case that could be a test case for us to follow. And I expect working with you and with colleagues throughout Cook County, we'll be able to select good cases to start with. We could assure people that cases will not be disrupted. We will give the judges the power to stop anybody from doing anything that's inappropriate in any particular case that's selected. And I think we can protect the rights of the citizens as we give them a chance to see what happens in their own courtrooms.
Right, and I think the first one was just a week or two ago. So it's too early for me to go stir in the pot for you. I'll stir that pot for you.
Well, you're a wonderful advocate, and we certainly look forward to your participation in this as we move forward.
But this camera thing's a big deal. Even now, the Supreme Court of the United States is wrestling with this issue, I hear.
Yes, they will have to consider it. They have given the general public more access to what takes place in the U.S. Supreme Court, but they've never gone so far as to literally have a camera covering the arguments that are presented there. But I think they should. And nobody from the U.S. Supreme Court has asked me, but I think they should permit it, and I think it can be handled properly there as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know, retired Associate Justice Souter, he said, "You'll see a camera in this courtroom over my dead body." And then now newly appointed Associate Justice Kagan, she's openly said she's all for it. So and she's John Roberts, our Chief Judge John Roberts, he's a pretty savvy guy.
Well, he is. I have met Justice Roberts, and I have respect for him, and I think he will take a look at this logically. Justice Kagan, as you indicate, is certainly supportive of it and comes from our area, by the way. And I think she is on the cutting edge of this, and I believe that ultimately we'll see cameras in most courtrooms, and you're absolutely right, they will be handled as well as the executive branch and the legislative branch handles their access to cameras, and we can certainly do it in the judiciary as well.
Yeah. Speaking of the legislative branch, I think Senator Durbin is one of the sponsors of a bill going through Congress right now to force the Supreme Court of the United States to permit cameras in the courtroom. And it struck me, I kind of smiled when I heard that, because I was thinking, well, I'm going to get a chance to ask Judge Evans what he thinks about the legislature telling the judiciary how it should go about doing its business. Can they do that?
Well, I think that ultimately the judiciary will make its own decision. You're right. There are some instances.
That independence we talked about.
Absolutely, it's independence. But you have to also recognize that there are areas where there is concurrent jurisdiction. That is to say, where the judiciary and the legislature may have equal access to the public on a given issue. I have great respect for Senator Dick Durbin. He is a marvelous senator and is a powerful senator in Washington, holding, I think, the second most powerful position in the Senate. And I know he often reflects the views of his colleagues. He's a leader there, and I'm sure they will take his view under consideration. But the independence of the judiciary is a factor that I don't want to see a bridge under any circumstance. I think that we each have a role to play, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary, and I want the judiciary always to shine.
Yeah. Judge, what do you think, though, about would the cameras ultimately be used in an unintended way, and that is that people would cite to the use of the cameras on appeals and try to argue to the justices, well, look, the trial judge viewed this testimony one way. We want you to look at this testimony and you make up your mind. You're the appellate court. Is that something that should happen, or how do we control that?
I'm sure that there will be issues like the one that you just described going up to the reviewing courts like the appellate court or the Supreme Court. But you have to remember the reviewing courts right now take into consideration what happened at the circuit court level. They have a record that goes up. They have a transcript. And they will, if we have cameras, they will not only be able to see the transcript, but they would be able, if they choose to see what literally took place there. And they wouldn't have to get it secondhand by virtue of a court reporter's transcription or anything else. They could see exactly what was going on. And I think anytime you have access to more facts, you're in a better position to make logical and just decisions. I want justice to be at the cornerstone of what we do. It won't be entertainment oriented, and I think that the professionalism of the media can be depended upon. I know that our canons of ethics will control what a judge can do, and lawyers are also covered by the rules issued by the Supreme Court. So I don't think that people will be able to get away with abusing the rules in such a way as they would jeopardize the rights of the individuals whose cases are pending. And I think we can do this in a high quality way. How could 36 states already be doing it successfully and a state like Illinois not get involved?
It wouldn't be the first time that we weren't on the cutting edge around here.
Well, we're going to change that. We want to move forward. This is a new day, and it's a day for justice. And I think that if people could see that it's worth their while to come down and serve on a jury, because jurors make decisions.
They sure do.
They would see, oh, there's a chance to participate in our government at that level. And they would not only be there for their loved ones and for others who have to seek justice, but they have to remember one day they might need to have somebody come down and serve on a jury for them. And this would give them a chance to see, once again, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's no trepidation that they need to be concerned about. No, our justice system works well, and they will see that it does.
Yeah. Your Honor, did any of your recommendation to the Supreme Court cover the issues associated with social media? Or have you had to deal with that in the Office of Chief Judge, the people who want a Twitter and Facebook and all that? Or do you leave that to the trial judges to sort out?
No, it's a legitimate concern, and we have had instances where people have attempted to sneak cameras into a courtroom to photograph a witness or to photograph the judge or even to photograph jurors. And there's been an allegation in the past that some of these photographs were being taken so that people could be threatened after the court or maybe during the court proceedings over a period of time. So we would have to take as many security advances as we possibly could take to protect people. But if you keep in mind the proceedings are already public and open to the public, it's not that witnesses are not going to be seen. They're seen right now. It's just that there would be a wider circulation of it. But I think we're given the discretion to protect the security of individuals who might be coming to court, and I think we would do that in a logical way as well.
You know, I thought for our viewers' benefit, I'd mention that there's a website pertaining to, it's going to be available shortly to evaluate at the Supreme Court level the pilot programs, World Wide Web, uscourts.gov. Will there be, Your Honor, a state website of that, if you know?
I'm sure there will be. I don't know of one right now in this pilot stage, but I'm sure there will be, so that the Supreme Court can get input, and so that they can take into consideration not only the recommendations by the local judges, but they would want to hear from the public as to what the public would like to see as well.
Right, right. And do you ultimately foresee that people, if the program is successful, would you permit it, say, in traffic court? I mean, I know people are just deathly afraid of walking into a courthouse. They're so unclear about what happens, and you know, ignorance is sometimes a big fear. It causes so many fears. This program would help get rid of that.
It would certainly give them a chance to see that there's nothing to fear in these public proceedings. Whether traffic court proceedings would be considered or not remains to be seen. I think that the most likely cases that would be the subject of a camera in a courtroom more likely would be the kinds of cases that you alluded to that are currently being focused on in
Right.
Atlanta and have been in California and Florida.
Yeah. I like selling them commercials. We could make money. we could solve the budget problem for the courts.
Well, you've made an interesting suggestion, because the taxpayers are at a point now where they're pushed up against the wall financially. These are tough economic times. Okay. And if you could do something that would keep the system independent, but at the same time give the taxpayers a tax break, I think that would be very popular.
There we go. Well, Chief Judge of the Circuit Court of Cook County, Timothy Evans, thank you for being here today. We're going to have you back someday to talk about this one again, if we may.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
We look forward to hearing about the impact of cameras in the courtroom. I'm Bob Clifford, President of the Chicago Bar Association, and thank you for watching Justice and Law Weekly. Judge.